Meteorologist Casey Cloud live with you right now on this Thursday evening, tracking a severe thunderstorm warning in towards South Georgia. You can see that yellow box on the screen, portions of Atkinson and Coffee counties there until about 8:30. Watching even a little bit of weak rotation with that. So let's go ahead and zoom in there. This is within our 62 county area, and that is our priority. But we are also watching a dangerous situation. I'm really concerned about Lubbock here on the national level because there's a chance that a strong tornado could occur there as we look ahead here over the next half hour or so, maybe, or at least within the next hour. So we got to be really mindful here of that, obviously. But of course, our 62 counties, you see Coffee, you see Atkinson there on the map, north of Clinton County. And we have this storm with some weak rotation. West of Douglas is where the worst of it is. You see on the rotation tracker there, south of the community of Bushnell, Georgia. We're tracking that very carefully, so you just got to be very mindful of that. So let's go ahead and look here at our other mode. We're watching this. It's honestly, rotating here a little bit, but if nothing else, there could be some damaging winds there, headed in the direction of the Amora community there in southern Coffee County, and then this ultimately can get in toward Atkinson County here. We're talking about southwestern Coffee and Atkinson counties under this warning here until about 8:30. We're talking about severe storm that is looking under Ambrose, moving southeast at 25 miles an hour. Douglas, Pearson, Willacoochee, Broxton, and Ambrose under this warning, and there is weak rotation. Weather service has been noted. A bunch of lightning with this as well here, so just got to be very mindful of that, obviously, as we're tracking things here, as we're monitoring it. So let me go ahead and back this up a little bit. You see, that's before the warning came out. Then we got the box to come out here, and it's been kind of staying steady state here since then. So a little bit of a hook on this even, but there's no tornado warning in our area. That's the good thing. We're watching this storm very carefully in towards southern Georgia now. We'll keep our eyes on that. Again, it's a thunderstorm warning at 8:30 for portions of Coffee and Atkinson. Ambrose, we were watching this in that area. It's moving, from the north down to the south of that. This storm is moving south there at about 25 miles an hour. But that's warning is in effect to 8:30 with 60-mile-an-hour wind potential and a weak rotation. Moore and Pearson potentially in the path here. Douglas is kind of, not into the worst of this, but just to the west of town, there's a lot of lightning that's really concentrating there. A pretty nasty situation as we've been looking here, as we've been tracking, as we've been giving you the very latest. So we're going to keep our eyes on that situation, but let me go ahead and move away from our local area for now. We need to take you out of Texas because this is a very concerning storm with a history of producing a very significant tornado threat further to the west. Right now, it's weakened again somewhat, and these storms can go through cycles, so that's the thing. In some ways, you'd almost want it to be cycling up now if you were in Lubbock, so that maybe it would cycle down when it gets into town, because there's a decent chance with it being like this, it could cycle up right when it's starting to come into Lubbock here. You got to be very, very, very careful in Lubbock. I would advise you guys in Lubbock right now, if you're not in your tornado safe spot, you need to get there because this could intensify into something that is very serious. We're talking about, winds well in excess of 100 miles an hour, not out of the question in the Lubbock area if this were to recycle here meteorologically. Now, if it doesn't do that, then this is still a nasty hail producer on the north side of town. Going to cause damage that way and some wind damage, but it's not, just a catastrophic event. But there's a chance if this recycles, the ingredients are there. If this were to ever be able to spin up, you see how it's kind of broad right now. Well, I'll back it up. You see how it was trying to be tighter earlier on. I've been switching radar some, but see how tight that was there. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things there, I know the wind's there, going toward the Lubbock radar, the wind's going away from the Lubbock radar. That's what it looked like about 20 minutes ago or so. Right now, I'm much weaker on that mode, but the winds are still strong. Outside of the tornado threat, then there's a hail threat in here that could probably be damaging, could bust out windshields there in toward parts of Texas. So there's also a flash flood warning that's been issued there for some areas. Not Lubbock County, though, it doesn't look like, but under that hail threat. If nothing else, could be pretty substantial on the north side of Lubbock here. As we're continuing to watch, as we're continuing to track things, just gotta continue to monitor the situation here, obviously. As things do transpire, you just gotta be really, really on guard for exactly what we're dealing with. So, again, this is a hail potential over 2 inches in diameter here at one point. As we were looking there, toward the north and the west, and right now it still could be in that range. I mean, honestly, when I say at one point, if you get even further out toward the west, we're talking about over 3 inches in diameter. That is really, really severe hail there. So, it's a very big storyline as we're tracking that for sure. Again, continuing to watch the situation, continuing to give you guys the very latest on what's happening there toward Lubbock. I know the hail size had gone down a little, it's gone back up some on our hail tracker, but if this were the spin were to tighten back up here, then that could head right in toward Lubbock. Continuing the tornado warning here. This office in Lubbock, there at 7:03 Central, severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado. Was located near Reese Center, 11 miles northwest of Lubbock, moving east, but somewhat south there at 30 miles an hour. We're talking about a situation there where this storm is undergoing a new cycle of circulation along the Hockley and Lubbock County lines. So this could be very serious if this really spins up right into Lubbock. Very concerned. In theory, a tornado could have winds to 150 miles an hour, based on what the Storm Prediction Center was saying. If this were to maximize the potential here of the atmosphere around it as it gets, in toward Lubbock, it really takes advantage of the environment. That's very important to keep in mind. It could max out there in Lubbock. Gotta be really careful. But back to our local area again. There are a few other storms that we're watching, but this is the one here we have the warning. The worst of this is west of Douglas here and towards south central Georgia. So we're continuing to watch this. We're continuing to track this here. I'm going to gather some more information. I'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Meteorologist Casey Cloud back with you right now at 8:07 on this Thursday evening. They have in the Jacksonville office there just canceled a severe thunderstorm warning for Atkinson and Coffee. So that is some good news, obviously. Great news there. Still some light in that area, but we have seen the wind really reduce. Still could have some strong gusty winds in there, but not necessarily getting to that severe criteria. So that's what we want to see as we look up there. So let's go ahead and focus our attention back into toward Texas then, as our local warning just went away. Now let's get back toward Texas, where it's now a confirmed tornado toward Hockley and Lubbock counties. Some real significant concern for Lubbock. I know storm relative velocity isn't so right now, but let me go ahead and I'll back this up. You can see some of the greens kind of fading for now, but now we're starting to see some of these oranges come back. If the greens come back, we could have a real problem right in Lubbock where there could be little time to warn people of a very significant impending threat in the ward of Lubbock Metro. We're talking about, a tornado that could do major, major damage. In the worst case scenario, we could even be talking about some homes that get completely destroyed in the ward Lubbock here. And that would be really bad news. And the hail threat's kind of going on the north side of town, maybe more toward Lubbock International Airport. But the tornado threat would be on the southern flank of this, right into downtown here. So we really need to be careful. It's not a particularly dangerous situation, tornado warning right now, but that doesn't mean it would not be, for some folks, and it could get upgraded to that, or even a tornado emergency if the storm can take advantage of the surrounding environment. I know it's moving east at only 15th, but it's slowing down a lot. So that's a flood threat there as we're looking toward the north side of Lubbock here over the next little bit. I know it looks like there's quite a bit of hail in here as we're looking between some of the different products and the like. Again, a really significant storm for the Lubbock Metro is possible here. Headed toward Texas Tech University there. I know their softball game delayed up in the Oklahoma City area tonight against Texas there because of bad weather in that vicinity. But this could be something much more substantial. Now, I do see something here. I do see something that's kind of interesting. There's a boundary with this, and sometimes they can do one of two things. They can indicate that this will weaken because there's cooler air, or if the storm actually can kind of get entrenched on the boundary, then they can really strengthen. So I know that's kind of, speaking out of both sides there of, of the coin per se, and looking at both sides of the coin. But just continuing to give you guys the latest here on what's going on. Again, let's go ahead and keep looking here at this. And we already broke in for the other warning. I wanted to stick on this too because we're ready to cut in if we needed to for Lubbock there. For if it's a tornado emergency, but I'm going to go ahead and give folks the heads up now that if you're in Lubbock, it's time to get to that tornado safe spot. Don't mess around there around Lubbock. It is very, serious here, the potential that exists with this. Very significant potential here as we're looking here. We're just going to keep on monitoring, keep on watching here. All these different scenes. I think it's starting to tighten, guys. And that could be bad news for Lubbock. If you're in Lubbock, you need to get to that basement if there is, that available in your area. I don't know. I probably said, look, honestly, I'm not familiar if that part of that state would have basements or not. Let me look here real quick. I don't know. It's not necessarily something you would have there. So you need to get to a safer structure, especially if you're in a mobile home or something like that. You need to be in a safer structure there. Because this, mobile home is not the place to be in this type of situation. I am very concerned about Lubbock. Treat this as if a tornado with major damage potential is headed your way, because that is what could happen. This could be a life-threatening situation for Lubbock and the Metro. I've been watching this for a while. You don't generally get this much warning for something like this, but this could be very bad here for Lubbock if things do come together. Now, I do say, there is, a chance this may not happen. I do see the parameters at least, and they may be a little bit displaced, but some of them are not, existing further east according to our system over here. As you get into Lubbock, I'm not sure if that's accurate or not because it looks like it's trying to tighten to me. They're so close, I don't think it would matter that much here. In that you just got to take precaution. Maybe it will, and maybe we'll see that ultimately that, you're in a better situation, but right now you got to treat this as if a large, a violent tornado is headed toward Lubbock. It's a possibility. Not necessarily saying there's one like that on the ground right now. There has been a confirmed tornado reported with this based on the warning here. And it was a large tornado earlier on as it was cycling. It sure looks like it's trying to form something back out in here, which is very interesting. It probably mean it'd be a very visible tornado, but don't try to see it. I know it's still daylight out there, probably for a little bit longer. as we're looking there. Don't try to view this tornado, though, even if it wouldn't necessarily be rain wrapped on this leading edge. There's also a lot of wind out ahead. Whether there's a major tornado with this or not, this could be a very damaging event there toward Lubbock Airport, the north side of Lubbock, with the wind, the wind and the hail, right in here. Right in there. The tornado could be a little bit further down toward the south with this, though, and head right into downtown Lubbock. Again, there is very significant concern. A very significant concern for Lubbock. They're calling this an observed tornado. Confirmed tornado 4 miles northwest of Reese Center at 13 miles west of Lubbock. Moving east at about 20, but there's a little bit of a southerly component with this as well. Headed for Lubbock there. You got to treat this as a major tornado is headed your way. It could be a major tornado. There's a chance, according to what Storm Prediction Center was saying earlier on, that a tornado could, in theory, in this environment, produce winds to 150 miles an hour, which would be an EF3 tornado, and that would produce severe damage. So you got to treat this as that scenario is possible. And the earlier 170 mile an hour winds, the story on the max potential, according to Storm Prediction Center, as this was in some more rural areas here, these storms in this environment, the storm action. So again, just gotta continue to track all this here as we are monitoring things. A very volatile environment, a 10% tornado risk today, an enhanced risk got issued earlier on. A hatched area that something we gotta really prepare for here. As you're looking toward Lubbock, this could be a really serious situation for those folks. The Texas Panhandle. Really need to be careful. I mean, you haven't had, let's say, a whole bunch of this landmark tornadoes over the years in Lubbock, but 1970, it was a different story. Just a catastrophe for those poor folks there in Lubbock. The 1970 Lubbock tornado coming on through, doing just extreme damage. It was an F5, if I recall, there in 1970 and toward Lubbock. Looking through some of that history. So, the worst case scenario tornado can occur there. This storm being kind of by itself as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here. You just got to be very mindful of what we're dealing with in toward that area. You just got to be very mindful. It was a devastating F5 there that caused, according to reports I'm looking at off camera, 26 fatalities there back in 1970 on May 11th. So, again, they are, prone to getting the worst case scenario tornadoes out there. That sure looks like it's tightening up to me. It's a weird area, though. It kind of reminds me of a tornado we had in Kansas there a few years ago. And that there's not a lot of rain on that, but it looks like it's rotating there to me. And there has been a confirmed tornado reported here with this based on the Weather Service indications. We're talking about 13 miles west of Lubbock. 13 miles west of Lubbock here. A really bad situation for those poor folks as this moves right in toward Lubbock. You got to treat this as if this is, going to come right into town and do major damage. So you got to get in the interiormost room of your home. If you have a basement, great. But let's go ahead and pull up the safety tips. And there's been a tornado watch and play there, but tornado been spotted in that area. So really get as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Protect yourself from flying debris by putting on a bicycle helmet, football helmet, baseball helmet, something like that. They're in the Lubbock Metro. This storm with a history of producing a very serious tornado in a rural area is headed right toward Lubbock. Right there in Lubbock. Texas Tech University. This is very serious. This is going to be around that area here in just a little bit. It's advisable to get into that, safe spot. If you're in a mobile home, you still have a few minutes to evacuate that for safer structure. If you're in Lubbock, you need to be in a safer structure. For the north side of town, you have a little less time because of the hail coming in, but the tornado threat's a little bit higher right into downtown. You need to get it out of that mobile home. You need to seek safer structure here. This is, very serious here. Very serious stuff. This could be one of these type of tornadoes. If it were to verify, like this that folks talk about for a while here. Let's hope not, though. There are some limiting factors I've noticed in the parameters, but it has, you can see it's perked up here. These colors are getting brighter as it moves in toward Lubbock here over the next little bit. This is uptrending, not downtrending, but it's not as bad as it looked earlier on. Okay, we're getting an update now. This is very interesting. Okay, a confirmed tornado is located near Reef Center, 12 miles west of Lubbock, moving east at 20 miles an hour. However, the circulation is now nearly stationary just west of Reef Center. So even though the storm's moving at 20 miles an hour, the tornado is just sitting over the same spot apparently. And it could resume forward movement toward the east at any time, though. So that's a very odd situation here, to say the least, a very peculiar one. Sometimes you'll have the situations out there where things will just start switching directions, and then you're all worried about one area and it takes a turn in a different direction totally. It's happened before. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but these storms are different than what you deal with even in other parts of Texas and other parts of the country. And West Texas is a whole different type of environment sometimes. I know Top Cat and watching there on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks so much for everybody watching on all the different platforms here tonight as we continue to give you guys the very latest. Again, I want to stick with this for a little longer, you know, even if it's not right on Lubbock, it's not even a PDS warning, but I'm just really concerned that this could be something that, you know, is really serious ultimately, because if it reaches its max potential, if it reaches the winds all the way to 150, like the Storm Prediction Center was talking about, like what maybe we had earlier in the rural areas, you know, if it happens right over Lubbock, this could be very problematic because there's a lot of areas that are very rural out there. The thing is, this is not one of those areas that where it's headed. It's headed right into toward downtown Lubbock, very, very highly populated, toward Texas Tech University here. I'm really concerned they're overdue for a tornado to really come into town and, you know, do major damage there. We really, that's tightening up there toward, you know, those areas. We're now seeing gate to gate of 100 miles an hour. That's the highest it's been for a while. If this does kind of get that forward movement going again, we're gonna potentially have problems. It could just be sitting over this area and gaining strength really, and then ultimately, you know, come right in toward Lubbock here, and toward the Texas Panhandle. So again, we really need to be very mindful of what we're dealing with here in this type of situation. I know as we're kind of watching here, as we're kind of tracking, we really have to be very mindful. This could be very bad for those folks there. You know, if it takes advantage of the environment here, does what it did earlier on, this could be very, very serious. So again, just continuing to track things here. It is 7:21 Central Time on this Thursday evening. I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. And in some ways you say maybe this isn't the Texas Panhandle, but some folks kind of call this the Texas Panhandle down there around Lubbock, and some don't. But if this, you know, kind of gets its head together and comes toward Lubbock, this could be upgraded again to a PDS tornado warning. May end up getting a tornado emergency for Lubbock if this were to really get its act together right into toward town. Let's look at the movement on this. You see it's very slow moving on that. Almost like I want to go more to the north side of Lubbock. There's a chance if it just keeps doing this, it may not end up being able to get there as far. Still right now toward the western Hockley County. You see right there, that's the county name, but it's about to be in toward Lubbock County here. Folks, reporting this tornado, it's not moving much. You see now a debris signature on this, it looked like there, maybe, possibly. It's not moving much in some rural areas though, so it could limit that. Again, we're still watching this. We're still tracking it. This is a confirmed tornado 4 miles northwest of Reef Center, 13 miles west of Lubbock. We're east at 15 miles an hour now. It's a very serious situation here. This is expected to be around Lubbock there. And just a little bit, another warning says, you know, next couple minutes. But it's not going to be, you know, necessarily in toward downtown Lubbock that quick here, probably, unless it really accelerates. But Lubbock addresses might not be that far off from being impacted in Lubbock County, at least. It's still in Hockley County right now. where we have winds there to 100 miles an hour. But that's going to be headed in toward Lubbock County soon. If this can kind of push in toward Lubbock here, it'll be a real problem for those folks. Maybe it won't because of the way these storms do weird stalls out here. It is not like our weather here in Florida, not even weather like you have around Dallas or around San Antonio or Houston. It's different in West Texas. Stuff can start. Sometimes it'll switch directions. The formations, it's not normal, compared to the rest of the country, really. Speaking of, odd in terms of the geography, parts of the country compared to us, eastern parts of Colorado, we have a tornado warning there now toward Kit Carson County until 6:45 Mountain Time. As we're looking at things there in east central Colorado, we'll continue to watch that. Let's get back toward Lubbock here as we look at this area around the Lubbock Metro. I want to check real quick that, speaking of Lubbock, the Women's College World Series being delayed because of the weather up there in Oklahoma City. It involves Texas Tech from Lubbock against Texas from Austin. They're now saying they're going to start that game at 8:50 Eastern Time. Okay, so they're going to start that game at 8:50 Eastern, 7:50 Central. So let me go ahead and go up. Let me go ahead and swing this on up here toward the north as we're looking at things. As we're looking at things here around Oklahoma City. You see around Oklahoma City, things are pretty clear. There's some stuff out there. I don't know let's see the direction on that. It's not really moving necessarily. This is away from them now, so that's good. Okay, we need to get back down to Hockley and Lubbock counties, though. They are now going with a pair of tornadoes on the ground now, apparently. A pair of tornadoes observed at 7:22 near Reese Center. A multi-vortex tornado indicated there in that area. Okay, so maybe a tornado in here and a tornado back in here. So that could speed up the timeline a little bit toward Lubbock here. This is a very unusual situation. Apparently there's two tornadoes on the ground. Twin tornadoes on the ground now here with this as it moves in toward Lubbock County. Two different, tornadic spins there. Reaching the surface. They call multi-vortex, but multi-vortex would be one tornado capable of, in general, more damage. But the warning now is saying two tornadoes on the ground. A pair of tornadoes there observed at 7:22 near Reese Center. So again, just continuing to watch that here. I know they're inside with us, but the NBA Finals going on, I believe, in Oklahoma City tonight. But that's not going to be necessarily impacted by the weather unless storms come in as fans are leaving there, something like that. But this storm here is very concerning because it's not that far from Lubbock, where you're talking about many, many thousands of people in that area. Let me check the population of Lubbock. I mean, it's one of the bigger cities in Texas. Texas has a lot of big cities. Don't get me wrong, but we're talking about over 250,000 people in Lubbock here. That is a lot of folks. Risk here, and there could be now twin tornadoes on the ground here with this. So, really serious, really serious situation here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here, and the movement is, not necessarily something that's going to be easy to track here. It is, fluctuating on us. We got to be really careful with this, obviously, as this moves on in there. Yeah, this moves on in towards some of these different areas. We just got to be paying attention here, obviously, with all of this. I know, going back real quick, our local area in South Florida, they now have flood advisory for Coffee County. That severe storm warning was dropped early, but a flood advisory now toward Coffee County in Georgia. And I'll switch the view over real quick to that. You can see quite a bit of precip in that area. Let me go ahead and go to our 1 hour rainfall. Yeah, that's a lot of rain there. 2-3 inches in just 1 hour there. Part of Coffin, even in over to Irwin County, rural Irwin County as well. Back to Texas we go with this. That doesn't look, very good there. As we're tracking that, obviously, as we continue to monitor things, but the movement on it is kind of, hard to gauge, obviously. Again, continuing to track this. trying to look at everything. Trying to keep everybody safe and informed. A unusual situation here, you know, in that most tornadic accidents are quicker than this. This is really slowed down. But this poses a major threat to life and property around Lubbock there as we continue to watch and we continue to track. So it's got to be very mindful of this here. You see rotation track over the last little bit headed in toward Lubbock in general. Yeah, headed right for the population, it would seem right now, but these storms could, you know, switch around on us here. These storms could switch around, I know. Starting to see some homes and structures in here. They're not that far off. I know you worry about, you know, oh, that's the down here. Sure, but, you know, you're just going to start getting them, you know, it's really rural for a while, but we're not that far away. You know, as you get into Lubbock County, you start to really see some structures in here that could get hit and could see major damage. So, again, looking at things, reports of power pole snap there around Hockley County, you know, vicinity there. Not what you want to see, obviously, not what you want to deal with. As we continue to watch. Yeah, I don't like the way this is, you know, is ticking up here as it gets into toward the metro around Lubbock, Texas. Again, continuing to track there. If you know anybody around Lubbock, let them know that a potentially life-threatening tornado or maybe multiple tornadoes are headed in the direction of town there over the next little bit into toward western Texas. You know, going to be really watching there. Serious situation here. Been giving you a heads up for a while on Lubbock. Headed in toward Lubbock County. You gotta take precautions here with this around Lubbock. You know, interior room, away from windows. You know, you don't want to be in a mobile home because this could wipe mobile homes away. Quite honestly here, I know, talking about, you know, what happened there in London, Kentucky. Don't want to have that happen around Lubbock. You know, as bad as things were around London, Kentucky, all the fatalities. We could be talking about many, many more structures hit if this reaches, you know, that worst case scenario. If it were to kind of slide on through, it may not. It may kind of stall around and eventually weaken. That's possible. So we're going to have to just continue to watch things here. But, you know, you gotta really be mindful of what's going on with this around Lubbock. Again, I keep saying it over and over again. The storm isn't moving very much either, which makes it a little bit tricky for coverage just to kind of sustain coverage and keep saying the same things over and over again. But the moving on this at only 10 miles an hour now. Very slow mover. If this were to, like, you know, stay on the ground and able to slide through Lubbock, actually on the ground, you know, we could be talking about even damage that's a little bit worse here as we're looking at things. So it's got to continue to watch, got to continue to track here. I know we're watching in our local level. We don't have any local warnings right now. Obviously, I know folks around our local are very excited about FSU baseball taking on Oregon State tomorrow night in Corvallis, Oregon. The Knowles, the 9th, you know, overall seed. Oregon State, the 8th overall seed. Weather up there should be all right, you know, toward that region. But Lubbock actually is where, you know, one of the former FSU players, Gage Harrelson, he transferred in from Gage Harrelson there. He transferred in from that, you know, area in Lubbock and Texas Tech, you know, University there last year. So as this is headed right toward Lubbock, this dangerous tornadic event potentially. And again, reports of power pole snapped according to a storm chaser. Nasty situation. Look at all that wind here. if you don't even have a tornado in here, you could have wind that's very substantial, hitting some homes in here right now, knocking out power. Not a good situation. And if you're in Lubbock, you need to treat this as if this is a worst case scenario. Maybe it won't be. We hope it's not, but it could be. Take those tornado precautions there on Lubbock. If nothing else, this could still be a very damaging event. Even if it's not a worst case scenario, hail and wind and tornado touchdowns intermittently could still be very, very problematic for those folks in the Texas Panhandle / West Texas, however you want to kind of describe it geographically. So again, very serious stuff there around Lubbock. Lubbock County, moving out of Hockley County into Lubbock. That looks a little bit broader, but there could still be something with this that is substantial. It looks broader right now, though, but it could tighten right up into something much more substantial. I mean, a pair of tornadoes observed at 7:22 near Reese Center. And just keep scrubbing back and forth to kind of get an idea of what's going on. If this area up here and this area down here were able to get together closer, you know, the gate fast and right into Lubbock, this could be a real problem here for Lubbock. So again, Lubbock County, again, a real serious situation in toward that region as we're looking and as we're tracking. So go ahead and kind of zoom out here. I want to zoom out a good bit. You see, like, there's one in Oklahoma. This storm south of 8 Oklahoma, pretty strong. A little bit of weak rotation, but not a tornado possible. Tag, I know. If they get any tornado warnings in the Oklahoma City TV market area, then that could make things interesting. The NBA Finals involving Oklahoma City going on. Hopefully that didn't happen, though. But let's get back down here toward Lubbock. Again, sticking with this, and that looks, let me look here. Back it up, go forward. That frame looked weaker. That frame looks stronger again here, folks. It's still hanging around. In some ways, it's still staying on the Hockley County side of the line here. But twin tornadoes were observed by, I guess, the National Severe Storms Laboratory, folks, at about 7:32 Central Time. So not a good situation here. Multiple tornadoes in progress at the same time with this as we're looking there. So really need to be paying attention around Lubbock. Really need to be on guard there in that region. And it's not just being about on guard, really. You know, if you don't have a safe structure that you're in right now, you're not in your safe spot, you need to go ahead and take action to protect yourself and protect, you know, your family. So, again, this is dangerous stuff for Lubbock there. I know I don't have much more to add, honestly. I keep saying the same stuff over and over. It's not right into town yet. So what we're going to do, we're going to gather more information here. It's 7:37. I know Texas Tech softball has a game to get to here. Start up in about 10 minutes or so. And you got to, you know, wonder what they're thinking right now that their, you know, university may be about to get hit, you know, by severe weather and or a tornado even. So that's not something, you know, if they even are aware of it, it may not be. That's not something, you know, folks want to see. Toward, you know, Lubbock there, toward Texas Tech University, the Red Raiders, their mascot. So, again, a dangerous situation here to say the least. And we're going to continue to gather more and be back here with more by about 7:45 Central Time. So keep it tuned here to Cloud Weather. We're going to gather more information. And we're going to keep you guys up to date. See you back here in about 8 minutes. Meteorologist Casey Cloud back with you at 7:45 Central Time on this Thursday night. I know we're continuing to watch a very serious situation toward Lubbock. We're getting tornadic circulations kind of just developing and, moving around here at times within this activity even. So we got to be really, really careful here. We've been watching one area, but we've been watching some other areas as well. This could be really tricky for folks. Anywhere in this box, you need to be inside. Need to be away from windows. This is really serious. Getting a report out of the areas there in Hockley County, 5 miles west-northwest of Reese Center. Emergency management reporting structural damage from a tornado and at least one person injured there. Not good, and we could have more injuries here and even the potential for something worse. Fatalities could happen. This could be a deadly tornadic situation as this moves in toward Lubbock. Folks in and around that area need to be in that interior room away from windows in a sturdy building immediately. That's really tight, looking here in some ways. Not, just complete gate to gate with it, but looks like it has that potential to do something really serious. So, as we back up, it actually looked a little bit tighter earlier on there. As we're continuing to watch this, as this continues to move in toward Lubbock there. We just got to be continuing to track the situation there as it moves in toward Lubbock there in Lubbock County. Again, some really serious stuff. Again, you already see the report of the injury up in here. That's close to where power poles were snapped, so not an ideal situation. It kind of looks like this cluster in here, but we've had some other tornadic areas here above, it would seem, as well. This is all headed, right into Lubbock. There's an area of strong winds up toward US 84 that might not be tornadic in nature, but then we have a tornadic circulation closer to State Road 114, and we could have other tornadoes popping up. There were reports of twin tornadoes at one point, so a really serious situation for those poor folks around Lubbock there in Lubbock County, Texas. Texas Tech University. One of those areas, I know they're trying to watch softball there. There are teams in the Women's College World Series. Instead, you need to get in that interior room. Put it on your phone to softball if you're not watching tornado coverage here. Instead, you go back and forth even. But you need to just be in that safe spot because this is a very serious weather situation. This includes all of Lubbock. No matter where you're at in Lubbock, you need to treat this like a tornado that's headed your way. It could head your way. There could also be wind damage. Could be hail damage here. Could have be damage in hailstorm embedded on all this here. Our radar indicating, about 2 inches there. In diameter on the hail, maybe slightly bigger than that on the north side of Lubbock headed toward the airport. So again, this is really serious, a very unusual storm setup here compared to what other parts of the country get. They can get this sometimes, but this is a little bit, on the upper end, the higher end of things. That's why we're on for the national level covered in case this turned into something catastrophic, in case a tornado emergency is required. So I know we're continuing to track this here very carefully. They caught it a particularly dangerous situation. They took that away here in the last update, but they could call that again. They could end up calling this, go back from, even to considerable and into catastrophic. Not out of the question. Catastrophic damage potential would indicate a tornado emergency. Not out of the question here for Lubbock. So I know we've said Lubbock, over and over and over again, but the time to take shelter in Lubbock, if you haven't already done so, what you should have is right now. Treat this like this is a matter of life and death because this could be here all in and around Lubbock. A very serious situation there here with the overall meteorology. I know as we look at things here, they are in the 10% hatched area for tornadoes. The threat of strong tornadoes was introduced earlier today by the Storm Protection Center. We retweeted this at Cloud Casey on Twitter to let folks know. We talked about it this afternoon in our weather cut-in and coverage for our local severe weather toward Duval County, northeast Florida. And we've been giving you a heads up, and this is a very serious scenario for Lubbock there. Hail tracks, you can see the purple hail about 2 inches there. And the overall threat is, substantial. Yeah, hail threat here, up to ping pong ball sized. A tornado could head down to Lubbock here, at least within the next 30 minutes, but it could be sooner than that. Time's kind of jumped all around here. Looks like it's tightening back up again. Oh boy, I was hoping this would be something where, even though it was a big local story for those folks, maybe it wouldn't be a really big national story. Things wouldn't take that turn for the worse. But this is trying to tighten up into something here that is really concerning. If this were to, able to get its act together here, right, closer towards sunset, that sunset timeline, and these winds were to get brighter on this, these colors, I should say, the winds, well, but the colors, were to get brighter with this here, that would indicate stronger winds, and if this has a potential even to produce a wide tornado, a strong and, wide, big tornado. Okay, so not good. Or again, multiple tornadoes are possible in this. This is very odd, language I'm kind of using here. It's not something we're used to dealing with. This is a very unusual situation here. Generally, aren't having to be on for West Texas stuff like this, but this has that, hallmark of something that has at least the potential to be a, life-changing event for some folks in and around Lubbock. Hopefully that didn't happen, but we got to be really, really careful here. At 7:48 Central Time, a confirmed tornado is located over East Center, or 8 miles west of Lubbock, moving east at 15 miles an hour. There's a wind gust to 95 miles an hour at the community of Smear at 7:40 there, and then wind gust there to 62 reported at East Center at the same time, and the circulation is becoming reestablished at this time just east of East Center. I know, are they calling this considerable again? I would, based on what I'm seeing on this. They're not, but this could impact areas around Lubbock. It looks like Lubbock South Plains Mall, Texas Tech University, and downtown Lubbock. This could be a catastrophic event. You're not seeing that right now. This is a, confirmed observed tag, not considerable even. They need to go back to considerable right now. It's pretty obvious it's trying to uptick on us. And it's in the rain again. This is rain wrapped, unlike earlier on. I know they don't have the major debris signature, but I think there might be somewhat of one trying to begin here. As we're looking on the latest scan, this is very nasty looking here. And this is hitting some homes, and maybe, I don't know if that's a runway. It kind of looks like it there. I'm not really sure, honestly, what that is geographically, but whatever it is, we have winds that could be upward of 120 miles an hour. That's very close to the radar, too. The gate-to-gate's up to 120 miles an hour with this. This really needs to be treated as this is a matter of life and death here. Rain-wrapped tornado observed, which is interesting to be able to observe it. So, through the rain, probably pretty bad with power flash of 7:50 there Central Time. I wouldn't even be, if this keeps tightening up like this, if it keeps turning the way it is, there could be EF2 plus tornado potential really, arising right into Lubbock, and then maybe a tornado emergency gets required. The debris signature probably isn't enough for that yet. To get a tornado emergency. There's really not much of one, which is kind of surprising here. But if it starts really hitting stuff, really being, concentrated here, then they may have to go in that direction in the Weather Service office in Lubbock. Again, really bad weather nonetheless there. Really substantial winds up in here, winds here, 100 miles an hour showing up very close to the radar. This is really an odd meteorological situation here, but it's coming right into a very, very highly populated area. Gotta take this as serious as you've ever taken any weather event before. If you know anybody around Lubbock here, make sure, they're taking precautions. If you're in Lubbock, you gotta take precautions. Again, this is really bad stuff here toward Lubbock County, Texas. Hockley County had problems and injury reported. So far, only a handful out of power in Hockley and Lubbock counties, according to Power.us, but that could change. They're continuing to warn it at 7:53 Central. A confirmed tornado was located over East Center, or 6 miles west of Lubbock, moving southeast at 45 miles an hour. In the West Texas Mesonet station there at Smire, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's back out in here. We're talking about a gust. There was a gust to 109 miles an hour at 7:46 p.m. So again, and then a gust to 107 miles an hour at 7:47. Whether that was from a tornado or straight line winds, it's still not good, and that's if that goes right through Lubbock, that's gonna cause all sorts of problems, obviously. Not a good set of circumstances at all here. As we're continuing to track this, I'll back this on up just a little bit here. I mean, this is really nasty weather, and this kind of goes to show you the danger we're dealing with. I mean, even if there's not a tornado all the time in here, this could indicate winds of over 100 miles an hour, hurricane, almost, major hurricane force winds, almost, winds that could gust to major hurricane strength, headed to a town of 250,000 folks here, Lubbock, Texas. So this is very, very serious. This is a matter of life and death here. We could be talking about power poles snapping all over the place, whether there's, tornadoes with us all the time or not. We could be talking about trees falling everywhere. We could be talking about just all sorts of major damage. Cars even, if they're on an area there that's elevated especially, they could be flipped. I think there's already a report of a semi flipped earlier on there in the tornadic activity. So this is really serious. We're talking about, there's still folks on the roads. I know KLBK TV. I'm looking over, on a side monitor here. They have some different feeds poured up. Their cameras and the like here, storm trackers, and there's vehicles still on the road here. If this wind catches those vehicles, it could flip them over. You need to seek safer structure. Your vehicle doesn't matter here. Your life is what matters in this situation. It's about protecting your life here. This is a life-threatening situation for Lubbock here. You've had reports of winds as high as 109 miles an hour recorded on an anemometer there in this area. 109 mile an hour winds reported here, and this is all coming right into Lubbock. Right in the word Lubbock there. Very, very bad news, folks. They may be watching cable because they're watching college softball. They're watching Texas Tech in the championship. If they're, depending on what they're watching on, they may not be getting a warning. They need to know there's a tornado and tornadic weather, extreme life-threatening weather could be headed toward Lubbock here. Lubbock, Lubbock, Lubbock. You need to take shelter. Report from the shallow water community. A large carport ripped loose from a house and entangled in power lines. This is from 7:50 Central Time. Coming on in here from law enforcement. So not good. Not good news there around Lubbock. Again, you need to take those precautions there immediately. You need to take those precautions there around Lubbock. Interior room away from windows. You don't want to be near a window in this type of situation. This could be very serious. Could be very substantial here. Could be very bad for these areas here around Lubbock. Continuing to give you guys the very latest here. The circulation looks slightly broader, but we're also real close on the radar. There's a ton of wind in here. Going to cause, I'm sure many, many folks to lose power in that area around Lubbock. Again, not good stuff here at all. Again, life-threatening weather there around Lubbock, Texas. We continue to give you the very latest. Just continue to check some things here in the Weather Center. Let me go ahead and zoom on out. This is a rapidly evolving weather situation. Lots of wind coming in there toward Lubbock. Winds could be over 100 miles an hour. Again, really nasty, really substantial, really severe. All the different adjectives here that you can use. West side of Lubbock, north side of Lubbock getting hammered. Again, still with you right now with the live coverage. 8:01 p.m. Central Time. Enhanced risk of severe weather continuing around there. I'm sure power outage numbers are mounting in that area. Again, trying to give you the latest. There's just not a lot to add at points here, but this is just looking really nasty. That does look a little bit tighter there. With the winds right there near 4th Street. Winds 80, 90 miles an hour and that possible. Okay, newest update, they're going radar indicated right now, but a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado 4 miles east of Ray Center, 5 miles northwest of Lubbock, is moving east at 15 miles an hour. And a second core with large hail was indicated just southeast of the Smire community. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but again, continuing to give you the latest. Look at all that hail in there. Really serious stuff. Really serious storm. Ooh, that's tying it up into something tornadic. This sure looks like. Sure looks like to me. Again, continuing to give you the latest. See all this wind in here. Sure, that's, really problematic. But then there could be a tornadic spin here right toward the ground. Can't see if there's a debris signature with that for sure, but right there near 4th Street. State Road 114. As we continue to give you the latest. Just checking some more information. Still a 10% hatched area there. Prior to tornado threat for strong, maybe even a violent tornado, not out of the question. Enhanced risk continuing. Not what you want to see, obviously. The whole setup here. Looking at the latest. See some of the different wind directions. Parts of that view. And then the tornado watches in the yellow shaded zones. See some of that spin there. Not that far from Texas Tech University. I know it's summer, but I know there's probably increased activity there in that region because of the softball team and the Women's College World Series. This could be a very nasty event. May not even be able to, watch that game. Some folks there because of what's going on. I do need to touch on something here. I did not see it go by, quite honestly, which, you know, because I have all the Lubbock information up here. We need to touch on something local. I mentioned the flood advisory earlier on towards South Georgia. Well, they upgraded to a flash flood warning, which is very unusual from the Jacksonville office. It's, you know, the rain's let up now, but there is a flash flood warning for a small sliver here of Coffee County, Georgia, until 11:45. We talked about it when they issued the flood advisory, but you see they went flash flood warning on that there. We have all the Lubbock stuff up, and I guess through all that, I kind of got lost in the shuffle, but flash flood emergency, flash flood warning, not a flash flood emergency, I'm sorry. Flash flood warning I issued there toward Coffee County in Georgia. This is the base one. Until 11:45 Eastern Time. 8:38 Doppler radar indicated thunderstorms producing heavy rain across the warned area, and between 3 and 4 inches of rain have fallen. Additional amounts of 1 to 2 are possible here in the warned area. Flash flooding is ongoing and expected to begin shortly. Flash flooding caused by thunderstorms there. So the rain's let up now. Some of these areas picking up about 5 inches of rain according to radar, which is a lot. A lot of rain. Of course, we have to watch our 62 counties here very carefully in these type of situations, you know, when there's inclement weather, dangerous weather, and the like. Let's go back out toward Texas. That storm we've been on for a while. All about, you know, that Lubbock area, and there've been a bunch of flash flood warnings out there, which they kind of, you know, keep coming up here, different things. A report of a vehicle struck by lightning there in Hockley County, Texas now. Hope it wasn't a storm chaser, you just never know. But lightning struck a vehicle on Highway 84, the occupant injured there in the Anton community. And then we're tracking this, you know, here further into Lubbock County. At 8:06 Central Time, severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado is located 4 miles west of Texas Tech University, or 4 miles northwest of the center of Lubbock, moving east at 25 miles an hour. And large hail is also indicated southwest of Center and southeast of Smear, or Smire. Again, I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce that. But again, continuing to track, continuing to give you the latest. More wind back out here. This is, you know, doesn't want to give up. What a bad situation toward Lubbock there tonight. Whether it's, you know, catastrophic or not. This is still a terrible storm for those folks. Not good. Not good to see this in a highly populated area. So many folks in there. Just checking the power outage numbers here. Over 1,600 customers in the dark in, you know, Lubbock County, according to poweroutage.us now. As we continue to give you the latest look at the numbers. The hail coming up back toward the west. This just keeps changing, you know, by the minute, rapidly changing. Looks like that hail potential really coming now. We were hoping, you know, for downtown Lubbock State that the worst of the hail would go away from them. Now we're getting a big hail area to develop that comes, you know, based on the latest track right into toward Lubbock. That could bust out windshields on vehicles and the like. Some wild, wild, wild weather for that Lubbock area there. Texas Tech University and the like. I know there's, you know, big hail, big wind, the tornado potential. We already had at least 2 injuries, one from lightning, one from, I think it was wind. Let me look. Structure damage from a tornado. So one from a tornado, one from lightning. A flooding potential because of all the heavy rain sitting over Lubbock as well. You know, so there's all sorts of different hazards here coming together for Lubbock. $5 size hail reported in Lubbock County, Texas, verified. I mean, Big hail, we've been winds over 100 reported, tornado causing injuries, lightning causing an injury, you know, at least one for each. What a mess, quite honestly. You don't see this stuff, you know, being this significant, that, you know, that part of the country that many times, you know. I mean, even every, you know, few years. So maybe, you know, like every several years you'll have an event, but this is a big deal for Lubbock. The tornadic weather, I mean, there could definitely be little spins that produce in here. I'm not seeing as much of that right now, but we're so close to the radar, it could be obscuring it some. Again, we're just continuing to watch, continuing to track. I mean, whether there's, you know, a tornado here or not, we've had winds over 100, could have hail over 2 inches in diameter, plus lightning, you know, could be deadly. And what a mess. Flooding it could be deadly. Because we'll look at the rain, this is moving so slow. Some areas in that region have picked up 3-4 inches in an hour. So, real problem there toward that part of the country. Still giving you guys the latest. You know, for those in those tornado safe spots, they're interested in that Women's Colored World Series game. Texas Tech tied at 0 with Texas in the second inning, top of the second. Latest update. So look at the score there, but again, continuing to give you the latest here. Lubbock County, quarter size hail at 8:10 Central Time. It's 8:12 Central Time right now. You see all this wind back behind. Had all this hail potential, had wind out ahead. What a nasty, nasty storm setup for Lubbock. Again, not a good situation for those folks there around Lubbock at all. This tornado warning continues 8:45. It things just move so slow around there. There's so much rain coming in. I feel like the flood threat would become more significant here in the next little bit with this just moving so slow right through Lubbock. Big thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado located over Texas Tech University or over Lubbock. I'm moving east at 25 miles an hour, and there is indication of wind-driven large hail near the Wolf Fourth community. It could be hail up to 4 inches now in diameter in this morning. So you could have hail that could be 4 inches. You could have it being wind-driven by winds to 100 miles an hour. Plus, there could be a tornado. Plus, there already lightning struck somebody or injured somebody in a vehicle. Plus, there's a flood threat here that could end up becoming substantial. Yikes. Not good. Whether we have a, you know, really bad tornado or not in the Lubbock Metro, it's still going to be a night you're never going to forget around Lubbock there. Especially with it coinciding with something, you know, most folks that area probably wanted to watch. The Texas Tech women's softball team there in the College World Series there, Oklahoma City. And instead of being able to watch that, in some cases, I know it's on cable, not broadcast, but I'm sure people are losing cable, losing internet, and they're just having to focus on protecting themselves and their family instead of able to watch that game that did get delayed a little by storms, but in the second inning up there on Oklahoma City. So that's the storyline there. You see 3-inch hail around the Wolf Fourth community in Lubbock County. But the warning is now saying there could be 4-inch hail with this. 4 inches. I mean, that is huge, softball-sized hail. Plus, we've had winds over 100 with this. Plus, we had a tornado injure somebody to the west. Lightning struck a vehicle, injured somebody toward the north and the west. Plus, the rain is just coming down in buckets. Could start to really flood areas there in the region. Just a terrible, terrible storm. Whether there's, again, an extreme tornado with this or not, one of the worst storms Lubbock has seen in years, no doubt. In Lubbock County, it's a storm they're never going to forget. I'm sure the parodies are just going to get higher and higher. I mean, into Lubbock County. I mean, the numbers are going to be always running a little behind, but I know in Hockley County, getting reported 2,211 customers in the dark. Lubbock County, 3,231. But it's probably going to be, we're probably going to be talking about tens of thousands of customers in the dark here. If not, we're talking, maybe I hate to throw out random numbers, but we're talking about many, many thousands in the dark. Just maybe half the county, before this is all said and done, Lubbock County could end up being in the dark here from this. And that's, over 124,000 so customers. If you count half of that, that's 60-something thousand. But not a good situation around Lubbock County. Just a terrible, terrible storm. Terrible, terrible different part to this. Let's go back to the high-res view of this. Just extreme hail here around 32nd Street to the southwest side of Lubbock, really. Could be getting hammered by hail. There could be a circulation trying to develop right over downtown Lubbock here. If nothing else, we could have some really significant wind. We have a lot of lightning, flood potential, more wind back out here on the western flank of that. Just every type of hazard you can think of happening there right now around Lubbock. Yeah, looking at this here, we kind of had a spin try to get together. It'd be hard to tell, but there's always a chance something could kind of form here and touch down right over Lubbock, or maybe right over Interstate 27. Just a terrible storm for Lubbock. Terrible. Awful. Again, effort in the latest information here on this. Checking some things in Lubbock County. Apparently vehicles stranded now around the Sallow Water community. We didn't turn the logo red, not a huge threat in terms of the organization of this over, hundreds of miles or something, but a localized threat around Lubbock that they're never going to forget. Not good at all. And continue to check things there on Lubbock. Just right, stay off the roads in that area. Not a good scenario at all. Just trying to get the latest updates here, obviously. Like a, hurricane type scenario there around Lubbock. Latest update now. At 8:18 Central, a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located over downtown Lubbock, or near Lubbock, moving east at 30 miles an hour. Hail to the size of softballs could be possible across the south side of Lubbock. So right in here around 32nd Street and University Avenue there in Lubbock. US 87 could be softball size hail and moving toward the community of Burris there. And also Ransom Canyon, Posey, those type of communities there. Just a really volatile scenario with the tornado warning continuing at 8:45 Central Time. A night they're never going to forget around Lubbock. Still checking some information. Trying to give you the latest. I see Lubbock Power and Light now, just in and of itself here, reporting 7,312 customers in the dark, 108 different active areas of outage. Report around Reese Center, a roof blown off an old service station. The South Plains Electric Cooperative, they're reporting a number of outages as well. 4,730 customers out in their service area. That includes parts of the Lubbock region. Saw that wind still hanging around, going to cause more and more power to go out. There's wind-driven hail that could be the size of softballs there in that area, ironically. That's very ironic, but the team in the Women's College World Series here up in Oklahoma, not a good situation at all. But yeah, hail could be the size of softballs there on the south side of Lubbock, unfortunately, according to the Weather Service there in Lubbock. That's what they're saying in their statement. There has been a report of tennis ball size hail reported around the Woodrow community in Lubbock County. That's in the last few minutes. I'm going to loop together some of this activity there. Pull that up. It's loading here on another system. Report of a flash flood 4 miles southwest of Lubbock, center there. Homes or buildings filled with water. Just a terrible storm for Lubbock. Let's go to our loop here. Watching how this kind of got going, a 4-hour loop. Rarely do you see a storm this bad, whether there's been a really terrible tornado with it in Lubbock or not. Don't necessarily think that's happened. You don't normally see a storm this bad go across the metro area. Like this one just took aim right on a lot of population, unfortunately. Let's just see the loop here. Let's see how it's been tracking right there in toward that area. Just a awful event for them. Reports of tree branches blown down there around the Wolf 4th community. Inside hail, 3 miles south-southwest of the center of Lubbock. Tornado warning continuing at 8:25 central. A severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado, and also 2.5 inch size hail. It was located over downtown Lubbock, or 4 miles northeast of Lubbock, moving southeast at 10 miles an hour, and the wind had gusted to 71 miles an hour at the All Saints West Texas Mesonet Station at 8:16 p.m. Again, trying to tell that weather story. Tornado warning continuing for parts of Lubbock County and toward that area. The storm, those folks won't ever forget to see other reports that's piling up right over them. What a mess. Going to go ahead and go forward to this, the end here. And then we'll go toward the other mode. They're just still getting hammered. I think the tornado threat in here, still could happen, but it's lower than it was. But it's just terrible storm for Lubbock. Power outage number is going to keep going higher and higher, no doubt. I'm going to keep checking some power outage numbers here. I'm going to check Lubbock Power and Light. They're reporting, well, actually for the moment the number went down to 2,430, but that might just be, temporary there. I doubt that power will be able to get back up that quick unless it just went off for a second and came back. But a really terrible storm for those folks. So what I think we're going to do right now, we've been given a heads up for Lubbock for a while. This is not a tornado emergency. This is not a PDS tornado warning. There's not even technically a confirmed tornado with this just at the moment. There have been earlier on injury reported from a tornado to the west with this. Winds over 100 miles an hour reported with this cluster. Somebody got injured from lightning as well. Plus there's flooding, reports of water coming in the buildings. So it's a terrible storm. Hail to 4 inches at times potentially with this. So it's a bad storm, really bad. We've been covering it, but it's becoming a situation that we've given you so much heads up that we're just going to leave the radar up here. This is not, something just the tornado threat isn't overwhelming, and it's something where there's just not much more we can say about it here at this point, since it's not the top of the list type overwhelming national story, but it's still a big deal for Lubbock. I don't have a formal weather update later tonight here. We'll leave the radar running a little longer. If something really perks up with the tornado threat, we'll jump back in. With only quarter-size hail reported at the Weather Service office in Lubbock. If something really perks up with the threat here of a tornado or just something overwhelming, that we haven't really referred to here, indicated to you guys that threat comes into play, then we'll pop back in, of course, here. Otherwise, we'll leave this running a little while longer, and we'll cut this stream. We'll be back with a formal update later tonight. And there's now a considerable flash flood threat for Lubbock, by the way. That is considered kind of particularly dangerous situation now. So all the heavy rain coming down there around Lubbock, do not leave your safe spots here in this situation, because this is so volatile a situation. Do not leave your safe spot, even though I'm kind of wrapping coverage. This is still very bad. Gusts to 66 miles an hour reported at the Weather Service office in Lubbock. This is still a very bad situation, but I think we pretty much did all we can, since it's not like a tornado that's on the ground that we're able to track. It's not a local story. Pretty big national story, but it's not, the top of the list per se in terms of just an overwhelming story we need to stick with here for hours and hours. So we're going to leave the radar running, pop back in if we need to. We're just going to go ahead and wrap things up for now. They'll have a formal update later tonight, so make sure you tune in for that. I'm going to leave this running a little bit longer here as we continue to track things here in toward the Weather Center. The new severe thunderstorm warning just came out. 70-mile-an-hour winds, considerable damage, into the half-size hail possibility in the whole yellow zone there. So there may be some of the highest end potential dropping off a bit. The radar could be obscuring things some. You see some higher winds moving down towards Slayton, but that could be how the radar is looking at it too, magnifying that area a little bit more. So that'll do it for now. We're going to leave this running. We'll be back here if warranted on this stream. Fourth hen egg size hair report out of that area in Lubbock County. Be back later tonight unless we need to pop back in sooner. Gonna keep this up a little longer though. Stay safe.